My conversation with people is they really don't know where to begin.
Yeah, but he said, you know what? We'll just let people send them back.
Why you got into this to begin with.
Yeah.
Now, what I've also got to see, which surprised me, is
how much do you make? What do you do? You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Aline, the co-author of the books Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors and The Best Known Roofer. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the leading digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I sit down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you could do me a favor, hit one of those buttons, the like, the comment, review, subscribe, follow, any of those things that you see in front of you or, while you're listening to this, we appreciate it. Leave us a review. That'd be nice also. If this podcast has helped you in your business and helped you find success in your roofing business, drop us a review. And if you want to take the conversation beyond with what you're just listening to here, go to Facebook, type in Roofing Success, and join the Roofing Success Facebook group. Today we have David Lupberger on with us. David is not a roofing contractor.
No.
He was a contractor in a former life.
Yep. Full service building contractor. Yep.
Full service building contractor. But David has taken a turn in his later years here and is starting to help people find and understand exiting their roofing company. So let's talk about the beginnings, your beginnings in contracting and what led you to where you're at now.
Home builder in Colorado, and we're going back a little bit, in the 80s, and an earlier downturn. And it was so bad in Colorado, Wyoming, the petroleum states. I got to move to Washington, D.C. My brother had been hired by the World Bank, and he didn't know anybody. He said, "Can you work on my house in D.C. in the area?" I said, "Sure." Worked there for a summer. I had 4 of his neighbors say, "Gosh, can you do something for us?" Went back to Boulder for 1 month, looked around and said, "There's nothing here." Loaded up the truck, and if you remember the Beverly Hillbillies, where everything is tied on the back of the pickup, because I was single at the time, I went east, took everything with me. If it didn't fit on the truck, it didn't come. And that led to a 16-year commitment in D.C., where I then became a custom remodeling contractor. D.C., you got traffic. Because traffic is so bad, people can't move out. So it's a built-in remodeling market. You're insulated by the federal government, civil servants who never get fired. So a rich remodeling market. But in 2004, I got to move back to Colorado, which has always been my home. And in going back, I decided I didn't want to build a whole new remodeling business because it takes years. And you even think of roofing to find the appropriate suppliers, tradespeople, to build a reputation. But I'd written a book called Managing the Emotional Homeowner. And honestly, that resonated within the construction community. I started getting invitations to speak with local groups, to travel, to speak with trade shows. And then I kind of segued into business consulting. Because after doing this for 30 years, what I did discover, and I think you'll agree with this, Jim, is that most of the people, at least contractors in building and probably roofers also, they're really good technicians. All right, they're tradespeople, but they're not business owners. And so really what I focused on is on the business side of really understanding the cost of doing business, looking at each element. And when I got back to Boulder, that business has now grown. And as you can see, I'll get to the point here, for your question. As you can see, as I've approached my 60s, I began looking at my own business. What do I do? How do you transition? And I actually became a certified exit planning advisor. And it's such a rich environment. I still do trade shows. And when I get there, half the people in the room have either no hair or white hair. And as I began engaging people and saying, what are you going to do when you leave your business? I usually was met with silence. And if I got to speak with somebody, the first question or the first answer is, I'm not leaving. And the reality is, well, you will, but can we do it in an organized fashion?
Mm-hmm.
And so hence I've really focused on now working with people in construction on what does a transition look like? What are the steps? How do you approach it? Realistically, how long does it take?
Yeah.
So that's a big intro.
Yeah. But that's where, being in the trades, understanding the trades, the book you wrote about, I didn't get a chance to read it, but it's through the customer journey, providing
Yes.
a great customer experience, which so of the 100 and something contractors I've interviewed on the show, a good majority of them have said that's why they started, because the company they were working with didn't do that. And they thought that they could provide a better experience to the homeowner, right?
Yeah.
And so then that journey has led you, like you said, into your 60s now, and looking back and going, man, this is like, what do you do now? I believe, and we had this conversation, I really believe that every business should be built to sell.
Yeah.
And in that belief, it's not that you have to sell it or anything, but it's that you then are building a business.
Key point, and I come back to most contractors, they are artisans. I
Yeah.
mean, I love working in the industry. And as you just said, I understand because I did it myself. I understand the dynamics, the honesty, the commitment that the tradespeople I work with, bring to their projects. And you just nailed it too, which is the best companies don't sell a project, they sell an experience.
Yeah.
And how do we document that experience? Because that's really what people are asking for. Just do what you say you're going to do. Imagine exceeding somebody's expectations. What a concept.
Yeah. You said that one job with your brother led to what, 14, 16 additional jobs?
Well, first I was in DC.
In DC, yeah.
And what happens is you start doing small jobs and people trust you.
Yeah.
And once people begin to trust you, then the jobs grow. And then I ended up getting licensed in Virginia. And Virginia is just a stone's throw, across the Potomac River. Yep. And worked primarily in North Arlington. And anybody, and I'm guessing your contractors too, you can oftentimes end up just working in 2 or 3 primary zip codes.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's due to the demographics, it's due to the age of the homes, and people referring you and the network that grows organically. So I spent 16 years in North Arlington.
Yep. And that word of mouth is gold. We look at it from a marketing perspective as sometimes you have to buy that word of mouth, right? Like you may have to buy a customer to then do good. But if you have the right customer experience in place, you are creating a very good long-term value from that customer in having them refer you for years and years and years.
Well, and again, I come back to, if you have a family doctor or a family dentist that you like and trust, when they come in and here's a certain procedure and it's a certain cost, you're not shopping that. All right. This is a person who says, I think you need the following. This is why. This is what I recommend. Those are the relationships people look for. And sure. I think contractors can do the same thing. And I've worked with some general contractors who've literally done 3, 4, 5 different projects over 30 years, not only for the client, but then for relatives.
Yep.
Because of that customer experience. I mean, it's everything.
It's everything.
The reality is, and when they trust you, and part of this is I really try to work with people to document the experience and how to communicate that experience. People will pay more if they understand what they're paying for.
And that creation of the experience that's documented and replicatable creates a business.
Well, and you touched on in the beginning that you mentioned building a business to sell.
Yeah.
And I think I'd mentioned to you an author by the name of Michael Gerber.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
wrote a book called The E-Myth.
Yep.
And in an interview, someone said, who are the most successful business owners? And he said, the most successful are those that built their business with the end in mind,
That's right.
knowing that they're creating an asset that will not be dependent on them. It's transferable. And again, we come back to systems. People come and go, but systems, if they're the right systems, you can pass those to key people. And imagine, and I work with the contractors, people who've been in a community for 20, 25, 30 years. Think of the goodwill they have, the supplier relationships, trade contractor relationships. That is such a solid foundation. And if you've done good work, imagine an appropriate, oftentimes an employee, but even, a third party. I mean, you're hitting the street running because here's a viable entity working in the community, well-known, well-represented. And some of this, what I'm talking about, this experience, this is not just for the clients. This same experience is for employees, is being able to communicate that commitment, that honesty. And I think I mentioned to you, Nordstrom's has 5 core values. And I got to meet one of their managers. And she said, from the first day that an employee starts, we imbibe those 5 Nordstrom core values. And you've heard stories where, I don't know if it's true or not, somebody bringing in 4 snow tires to return. Yeah. The guy gives them a credit, they buy something else, and the story supposedly ends with, and Nordstrom doesn't sell snow tires.
That's right.
Now, I have no idea if that's true, but you get the idea, which is take care of the customer.
But it's business folklore, right? Like that's the type of experience that can be created. Another one is the book about the Zappos founder. I don't know if you got to read that one, but like just the thought process that you could buy shoes online, right? Like that was really one of the dumbest things you could come up with, right? Like, because you really have to try shoes on. You have you got to walk around in them a little bit, right? You got to, like, there's something to it. But he said, you know what? We'll just let people send them back. No, we can't do that. They can even the amount of shipping and the amount of the cost but they did it. And it created this world-class customer experience of ordering shoes, right? Like it's the little things matter. So let's talk about how a contractor can structure their business with a customer experience first and good business fundamentals that set them up to potentially exit down the road.
Okay. So what I like doing, and these are people oftentimes who've worked 20, 25 years, good at what they do, and beginning to realize that, I'm not going to do this forever. Now, what I've also got to see, which surprised me, is every contractor I've worked with, except for one, every contractor doesn't want to quit. Yeah. They don't want to go play golf 3 days a week. They like what they do. They're good at what they do. So the focus has really been, how do I go from working 50 hours a week, perhaps down to 15?
Yeah.
And how do I delegate? Who do I delegate it to? What's the process? How do I start? So when I begin working with somebody, I give them a template and I say, let's create a company organizational chart. And then I give them a list, and every small business has, honestly, 12 to 15 primary functions. If you look at marketing, sales, estimating, bookkeeping, paper flow, project management, the actual installation, helpers, there's these different functions. And so I ask an owner, and I give them an example. Show me who's doing this now. And that first eureka moment is when we see their name in 6, 7, or 8 different company functions.
That's right.
And I'm looking at this and saying, do you really enjoy this and this and this? And I know the answers. Well, no, I don't really enjoy that, or I don't really enjoy that. So then I'm saying, let's create, in this case, even a 90-day org chart. Let's take two of those functions. In 90 days, I'm going to show you how to delegate that. All right, so we're going to pick those two positions. I'll work with you to create a position description. You're already doing it, or you want to duplicate it. So we can easily, within 10 or 15 minutes, I can create a written position description of what they do. Once we've done that, that's the first handoff. And I can begin to then say, is there somebody in-house? If not, let me give you some assistance finding that person who might step in. And I can do this in a graduated fashion because let's start with those first two things.
Yep.
And oftentimes I'll ask people for a 6-month organizational chart because most people are still working, 50 and 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
But let's begin to create this transition roadmap. And
I've done this exercise in a way where we've done the org chart, and the way that we did it with one of our coaches and mentors was, you write out all the seats.
Yeah.
Without first of what you need in your business, like you're saying, the 12, the 12, 14 functions, right? You have those certain seats, and then you go. I like the idea. You go back and you're of course, like you're writing your name in those seats, right?
Yeah.
And then, so that's definitely a wow moment.
Yeah.
We run EOS in our business.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Right. So it's, is it something that you enjoy doing? Is it something that you're good at doing? Is it something that you don't like doing? And is it something that you're not good at doing? And there's you can rate the tasks there. I like to say, David, that I like to, when I'm coaching other agency owners, is once I had that kind of realization, one of the things that I've done in our business is I like to hire what I procrastinate on.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you're sitting in all those seats and you're like, oh man, now it's time to do, collections. Boy, I hate doing collections. And well, let me just do something else for a little bit. Let me do.
Yep.
And then the collection process gets pushed. And then that creates a cash flow problem. And then that leads to other things, right? Or, for someone that is a true, let's say, roofer, right? They love the trade aspect of it. They love the production process. They love to be on the job site, managing the builds. Going out and selling the jobs, maybe, I could run this lead. I could knock these neighbors, but you know what? I don't really want to bother them, which then impedes the growth of the business by the things that you're procrastinating on.
It was my own business. It was data entry, invoicing, accounts payable, accounts receivable. And here was the breakthrough. The breakthrough was, do you know, Jim, there are actually people who enjoy doing that.
I know. Isn't it
what
crazy?
What a breakthrough. And then realizing it's like they had this skill, and on my accounting, if it was close, that was good enough.
That's right.
They don't like that. They want these numbers to be exact. And then I saw not only did they do it better than me, but they did it faster.
Yes.
And when you delegate some of those tasks, you literally physically feel lighter. It's holy smokes. I don't have to do that anymore.
That's right.
And can I give you one more context?
Yeah, for sure.
Is when I'm working with somebody, and let's say they're doing $1 million a year in revenue, round number.
Yep.
I can look at an owner and say, let's divide that by a standard 40-hour work week times 50 weeks, 2,000 hours. If I divide $1 million by 2,000, I can say to any good owner, do you know you're generating revenue at $500 an hour?
Yeah.
Now, let's look back at your org chart. Let's look at what you can and should be doing strategically, what you're best at. Because fundamentally, if you can hire somebody for $15, $20, $25, $30 an hour, you don't do it all at once, but by golly, that's what we're doing. I want to free you up to work on the business, to do what you do best, to enjoy why you got into this to begin with.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about developing those position descriptions. I think that's something that could be really insightful to people.
So I've got a business manual that I wrote for contractors that has 21 construction specific job descriptions. Now, again, I work more with general contractors, but the reality is I can give them a template because my point is I don't want you to think this is hard. And then I'll do an example with them. I'll sit down and we may take, if I'm looking at the org chart, I might take one position that they're wearing that hat. And I'm going to ask them, tell me everything you do. It'll just be an interview. And tell me more. And I'm going to review the primary functions. In all honesty, and I'm going to generalize this, there's probably 10 or 12 at most primary responsibilities in these key functions. And between the two of us, within 20 to 30 minutes, we can identify those key responsibilities. That's the beginning of a position description. All right. Now I've identified what I want that person to do, but now I want to go one step further. And I'm going to say, what process do you follow? Well, they're never going to sit down and write this out. I already know that.
Yeah.
Now I can say, take a handheld tape recorder. Let's take responsibility number 1. Tell me what you do and just record the process they follow. It might ramble. They're going to be ums and ahs, but they could do that in under 10 minutes. Then I'm going to go to the next one and the next one. What we're going to end up with is an electronic review of what they do for each responsibility. I can send that to a transcriptionist. And a transcriptionist within 48 to 36 hours will send back that file, that MP4 file, that I can now put into, a digital document, but I'll edit it first. And I'm not going to edit it. I'm a business owner, but I'm going to give to my high school, kids, or I'm going to hire somebody at $15 an hour to go through and take out the M's and the A's, to look at the sentence structure. And then I'm going to sit down and review it again. But remember, it's now in a Word file, so I can edit. And within another 2 to 3 hours, I have a position description by responsibility with written processes. And I've done this with general contractors, and with a focus, within 3 months, I can create both position description and processes. Now, it's a commitment. Yes. But the reality is that, nobody wants to do this. I got too many other things to do. So let's shortcut it. And that's the other thing I try to do is let's look at some shortcuts to get this done.
And I like that you're saying shortcuts, and the shortcut is 3 months.
Well, that's a real shortcut.
Right? Okay. Like that's the short, like this is somebody
who's going to Europe in a year. All right.
That's right. Yeah.
And they're leaving for a month and they want everything documented.
And that's quickly. So understanding that as a business owner, that look, this is a commitment that's going to take time. Mm-hmm. Whether you're a business owner towards the end of your business life, or if you're starting out at the same time.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we get overwhelmed with the amount, and that's where a lot of procrastination happens, or that that's just too much to do right now. Instead of if you have your org chart and you know what position descriptions you need to build. And then you know what processes you need to go underneath those, or you don't have to do it all at once. Like I think you had said earlier, you're looking at, hey, okay, what seat are we gonna get you out of first? Mm-hmm. Well, let's do that one.
Yeah,
let's get through that, and then move on to the next, and then move on to the next. I like to say. Right. Like in business, I love phase 1, do something. Phase 2, do something a little better than that. Phase 3, do something a little better than that, right? And it's just those small iterations that you keep like we're making it a little better, right? We have an org chart now. That's phase 1. Like that's a little better. Then we have position descriptions for 1 or 5 of our roles.
Right.
And then we have process, like it's something that you can continuously build upon And you can give me your opinion on this, um, but I don't think, a lot of these things are living documents, right? They're not things that get like, this is it for the next 40 years. This is a document that you're creating. This is a process that you're creating that then you can start to make iterations on to improve upon, to have a better customer experience potentially, or more efficiency in that role. So there's a lot of things that you can do within that. But if you are building your business to sell, or if you are starting to get to the point where you go, man, I'm not going to be able to do this forever, it's time to get that work in, right?
And my conversation with people is they really don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
And just as you said, I'm just going to procrastinate. I don't know where to start.
Yep.
So this is truly about saying, here's a process. And, we could do one position with written position description and processes that have been edited. We could do that realistically in 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
So let's say we divide that 8 to 10 hours over 2 weeks. And again, I'm being very proactive here.
Yeah.
And maybe I do 2 a month, but I'm not doing all of them, because if I have employees, I can do the same process and I can show them how to interview their employee, document what good people are doing, put it in writing. Once you have that, that's now the basis for an employee evaluation.
Yeah.
And this is truly, if I do this correctly, I'm doing it with the employee, because when they help write their position description,
That's right.
They own it.
That's right.
And so that buy-in takes place. And so I'm not only getting buy-in, but I'm also now creating company standards. And as you said, the living document is so true, because now 6 months from now, as I sit with key employees, we may pull up, if I do semi-annual evaluations, let's pull up your position description. Can you improve on this? You're the one in the field. Tell me what we can do better. And I really love that feedback, which is, you're part of something bigger here. And I want your feedback. You may know more, and I want you to know that when you see what we can improve, that I'd like to see it. I'd like to know more.
And that creates a great culture, right? I hate it, but there's a lot of dishonesty in the employee-employer relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
It can go both ways, right? But a lot of it boggles my mind. I've never been a big corporate person. I've never been a corporate person. I have family members that work for big corporations and high up positions, and I just go, man, I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, you and me both. Yeah.
The politics, the game, the jockeying for position, and all these different things that they play, and I'm like, man, it just seems so dishonest to me, right? I love that, creating an environment of continuous improvement, because if everyone on the team is working for continuous improvement and everyone's going in the same direction, that's what makes things great, right? That's what really can make things great. But another thing that it does is that it shines a light on people who are not in alignment.
No, this is true synergy. And when I'm doing this within a company, you'll see just what you said, who's not in alignment.
Yeah.
And building a company where these shared values, it is in reflection to the customer experience, but it's also in reflection to the employee experience. And I want to create a company where they realize that experience is valued.
Yeah.
And, this old model where it's my way or the highway, sorry, that's done.
Yeah.
And nor do you want that.
Yeah.
And so you'd mentioned you couldn't work in a corporation. Jim, we're unemployable. We've been on our own for way too long.
That's right.
and I've had 3 people, literally 3 entities, ask me to work with them. And we didn't make it beyond 6 months with any of them.
Yeah.
All right. Because I want to co-author. And at certain points, they're saying, wait a minute, we didn't ask for a co-author. We wanted you to participate.
That's
well,
right.
If I participate, I co-author.
Yeah. For sure. So now moving into, you have the org chart, you have the position description, you have the role laid out. If there is no one in the company that will fill that role, let's talk a little bit about the hiring process.
Great. So you're hitting on, because I've got some key partners that I bring into play when I'm working with people. And one is called the contractor staffing source. And a gentleman that I work with for quality of life, in all honesty, he was a sound engineer in Vancouver, Canada, working 50, 60 hours a week because sound engineer, music, shows, not getting home till 3 and 4 in the morning. He's got 2 young kids.
Yep.
And at a certain point, he said, it's not worth it. He moved to Hawaii and he's built this business. And what I do is, if anybody's interested, I set up a 3-way call, because what they do is they will work with you to begin to identify the position description. But upon your approval, they'll post it in 20 online job boards. And then they employ these wonderful online assessments. And they've got these trade-specific assessments for owner, office manager, salesperson, production manager, and these different assessments. And some of these tools are really powerful. And the reason I'm bringing this up, I've watched owner after owner, myself included. We try to hire based on our gut.
Yeah.
I think he knows what he's saying. It looks like it'll be good. I like him. And then 6 months later, historically, 2 out of 3 of those employees are not there anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, let's look at potentially working with someone to help you find the person. And I look at them like a good trade contractor. I'm not going to hang drywall. I'm not going to paint the room. I'm not going to do the siding, because my job is to make sure it gets done. But let me bring in an appropriate tradesperson. Mm. And their rate is really very, very, very affordable. It's $2,000 a month for up to 5 people. So I don't even know how they do it, but they'll basically oversee, run the ads, check in daily. So I'm kind of handing off when you asked about the question.
Yep.
I don't try to do this because I'm going to go to a specialist who that's all they focus on. They do it well. And then we try to work in partnership. So I work with, I mentioned, 2 or 3 partners when people need specific assist with certain parts of their business. I can't be all things, but I know Justin, his name is Justin Landry. Justin's very good at what he does. So there's a nice cooperative benefit. And I usually just set up a 30 or 40 minute call. I introduced, the roofer, the contractor. They talk for 30 or 40 minutes. They see if there's a good fit. If not, we try it. If so, where does it go from there? And they'll actually do a free assessment just to show you how it works.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's that, having the right person, right? I read a book recently called Who, it's Jeff Smart was the author, and it's about this hiring process. And again, not being a corporate person, right? I've always felt the hiring process was a little weird.
Yeah.
Right. Like interviews are there's a lot of dumb questions that get asked. And, I always thought that I'm like, this is weird. But then after reading that book, it was a framework for hiring, which I'm sure like the partner that you have has a framework for hiring, right? They understand how to write the job ads to make sure that they're attracting the right candidate. Yeah. They probably have some sort of pre-interview, a multiple interview sequence that they do to right, like, and after reading that book, I was like, man, this is like, I get it now. There's a framework to it, right? And there's I guess there's an art or a science to it. I don't know which it is, right? If it's an art or a science, but maybe an art when it comes to people, right? Because choosing people it's a tough one. My Gary Vaynerchuk is a big social media guy. And one of the things I got from him is hiring is guessing, firing is knowing.
Let's say that again.
Hiring is guessing, firing is knowing, right?
Wow. Okay,
And
interesting.
so what we want to do is learn how to hire as best possible, maybe using these frameworks or using these outsourcing, experts and things like that to get the right candidates in the door. But ultimately, we're still just making an educated guess.
Yeah.
Right. But then if you have the other parts of your business in alignment, if you have your org chart, your position descriptions, you have your core values, you have all of these other parts, now you have something to measure on an ongoing basis. So you can know faster, maybe, right?
Yeah, and I want that additional information. I just know that the contractors, at least in the building industries, they suck at hiring.
For
And
sure.
it's because there is no process. They
That's
don't
right.
understand the process. They're trying to make it up. They're
And I think a big
uncomfortable. I mean, they don't feel good about it. They don't feel qualified.
no.
Well, look, let's hand that to somebody to see if they can help you.
Yep. And what I think is important there, a lot of times when we hire, especially as small businesses, we need someone now.
Yeah.
We need a warm body, right? And when we need a warm body, boy, we may not make the best decisions. Yeah, right. So not having a structured process to hire good people and then just needing help now.
Yeah.
Man, we just took on a whole bunch of new jobs. We need someone now. And that's part of that book was talking about developing a recruiting aspect to the process where it's not just, well, we need someone now. We better, let's get that job post up and get someone in the door. Oh, so as you're looking at this, you said a 6-month org chart, and I'm assuming you could, draw that out 12 months, 18 months, 36 months, right?
You're hitting on the key point because the purpose of the org chart is also to project.
That's right.
Because I'm saying 6 months out, 12 months out, are sales increasing?
Yep.
Because if sales are increasing, let's add 20% in revenue. I can now say, based on our production, who else do I know ahead of time will we be adding? Because I can do that. I can project and say, we will need another installer.
Yep.
All right. We will need an admin assistant. I can see that 6 months in advance.
Yep.
So now we move from desperation to planning.
Exactly. That's where I was going with it. Like, that's what I think there's a power in that. And then once you understand who you need ahead of time, it's a weird thing. You may have experienced this. I've experienced this a lot in my life. Is like once you have that idea in your mind, it's like getting a new car and then you see that car everywhere.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true.
Right. So once you know, man, we need we're going to need another job site supervisor in 3 months.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's a weird thing that you start, like your brain goes, okay, I'll start looking for that person. Right. And not that you won't have to place an ad and interview people or any of that, but man, you might just run across someone that you had worked with in a past company.
That's right.
And in that conversation, you know what, things are, I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with the company I'm with forever. Hey, you know what? In a couple months, we're going to be looking for a new job site super. And they're like, that would be there's a lot of weird things that happen when you have that intention, right? Like that, and you understand the roadmap of where you're going.
Well, the radar is switched on.
The radar switched on, right?
Because
so we
now,
have
and now I'm sharing it with people. Now I'm beginning to say, we're growing and I could use a new project manager. I could use a new installer. And you're saying that, in your network.
In your network, to your current employees who may have a friend or family member that would be a great fit for that position and a great cultural fit. Or, there's a lot of things that can happen there when you're intentional about it. When your reaction, when it's a reactionary process, it's tough. It's tough to make it work.
And let me give you another little shortcut. And I had a contractor in Northern Virginia who did this as they were growing, and his company is very successful. As they were adding people, he would not only review and contact his network, he would send a note out to past customers.
Yeah.
He did say, "You've experienced our work. We're growing. And look, you may know people, but if you know somebody who'd like to work with a growing company, here's a position we have open." And he said he would get feedback because in all of your customers' network, they may know somebody who's unhappy. And because they had experienced with you, it can be a warm referral of them saying, "Gosh, I got this note. My cousin, my neighbor's son," or you just never know. But the more people I talk to, I'm going to get more responses. I'm going to get some kind of feedback.
That's right. I talk about it just kind of off topic of this, but I'll connect it. I look at marketing there are 4 places that you're marketing your business. You're marketing for new business. You're marketing to your existing customers or past customers for additional referral business. Like you said, it's essentially marketing to your current employees to, those team events that you're doing and the Christmas party and all that stuff is your marketing. Those are marketing efforts.
Yeah.
And then you're marketing to future employees too. Because as they see your company doing great work, they see your trucks around, they see you at the supply house, I just talked to a guy this morning who got into the roofing business because he sold a roofing sales rep a new truck.
Interesting.
And had to run his finances. And he went, "How much do you make? What do you do?" I'm sitting here selling cars bell to bell, and you're doing that. And that was his entry into the roofing business. It's a weird thing, but that's not specific marketing, but showing that you have an opportunity for people to succeed. You have an environment where people can thrive and be happy in their positions. They get to be a part of a good team. They get to know that that the company is taking care of the customers that they're serving. All of that is so important.
Well, can I add something to that?
Yeah, for sure.
Because when I look at people in the building industry, they're entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They've learned a trade. They were good at what they did. Because they were good at what they did, the business grew. They pulled people in to work with them. But guess what? Business owners live with risk.
Yeah.
I must sell. I must sell not only pay my mortgage, but to pay my employees.
Yeah.
And regardless of the economy, I've got a set overhead. And there's risk. And I'm going to make a broad guess here, but I'm going to say 95% of the population cannot live with that risk.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurs have a unique skill set, which is they work within that framework. They work within risk.
Yeah.
But if I've got 95% of the population that doesn't want to live with that insecurity, they do want to work with a good company.
That's right.
They do want to work where they see an opportunity to grow, to be compensated, to be acknowledged.
Yep.
And if you create that synergy, there's some surveys that, why do people stay at companies? And money is like 4th or 5th on the list.
Always, yeah.
All right? Because it really is about acknowledgement, synergy, participation of everything we're saying here, which is, an owner can't do this, nor do they want to do this alone. And if we circle back to, building with the end in mind.
That's right.
You're really building something that's not dependent on you.
Yeah.
And the end goal that over time, if I'm going to go from 50 hours a week down to 15, there are key functions being delegated, people taking responsibility and me gaining freedom or strategic focus, that's a win-win.
Yeah. So now the contractor they have their org chart. They understand that they have position descriptions. They have standard operating procedures. They've hired the right people into those places so that they can remove themselves from the business. Now they're in a position to exit.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So now they've done a lot of the work. What should a contractor think about on that exit?
It's a great question. So in my experience in construction is when a company is sold, businesses create a valuation process. And it's a multiple. I'm going to make this simple. It's a multiple of net earnings.
Yeah.
All right. And so traditionally in construction, my experience is that multiple isn't very high. 3.5 times net earnings. In a unique situation, maybe roofing is a little higher. Construction, it's really 2.5 to 3.5 times net earnings. And because these are community-based businesses, oftentimes the systems are self-created. So you don't have people coming in to buy the business. In construction, 80% of transfers are done with key employees. All right. So if I'm really focusing with the end in mind, I'm hiring good people. And over the course of somebody who's been with the company 5, 10, maybe 12 years, am I beginning to train or acknowledge I may have a replacement? And so I'm just going to make this up, over a 3 to 5 year period, I could be delegating more management responsibilities to this person, seeing them step up. And again, compensation follows. And then I'm going to get a little bit more business wise here, that you can actually, for key employees, so that they don't leave, you can do something called phantom stock, where I can say, based on performance to this key person or people, I can allocate phantom stock, let's say 10% per year based on performance, certain performance metrics. But that doesn't transfer until a future period.
Yeah.
So maybe it's 3 years. So in that 3 years, they're stepping up. We're looking at metrics for success. And then in year 3, that 30% can transfer. Guess what? That's called a stay bonus. They're not leaving, because if they leave before that time, they lose everything. So there's reason to stay. And so I can do that with that key employee. At that point, they have 30% of stock. Truly, now they're a partner.
Yeah.
But the interesting part of this is that when somebody owns over 20% of a business, you can begin to introduce SBA financing. All right. Worst thing I've seen is somebody carrying a note for 10 years. It's not going to work. So let's look at getting an ownership interest, minimum 20 to 25%. Because if the business is profitable, then guess what? The SBA is a government program. There's a paper trail, but you should have that paper trail. And demonstrating what this person is doing, what the company is making, you're now in a position to obtain SBA financing. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
All right. To help small business owners manage and grow their business. And so there's an interesting opportunity here, trying to find that right person. So if we build in the end in mind, my radar is, do I see a potential owner? And when I'm saying that, I want to see somebody with initiative, with ambition, who takes responsibility, who doesn't. We've all seen people who don't want responsibility.
Yeah.
We've all had people who stepped up and said, what else can I do?
For sure. I think that's an interesting aspect of it, is that the owner to key employee transfer of a business.
Yeah.
Like that, a lot of times we think of outside interests coming in and buying the business. Now, in the roofing industry, we're having some consolidation. Private equity has arrived. And so there are other opportunities for companies if you get to certain sizes and have the right people and processes in place.
Yeah.
There may be some additional, a different type of opportunity for you in some of those, for some of those things. What else? What should an owner be wary of, or be careful of in that in selling their business?
I've heard people say, I've got one person or, an office manager or someone, and the conversation comes up, can I give them stock? No, you don't do that until they prove themselves. Now, they could be a great employee, but if I'm truly going through a transfer, that's why I really focus on this idea of phantom stock, because the communication is,
Yeah.
as we develop certain performance metrics, your job is to meet or exceed. And my experience has been about 50% of those people do not exceed. All right, it happens. But at least you're going through that filtering process.
Yeah.
And so I can create that benchmark, but I'm not allocating ownership until that threshold has been, number one, identified, and then number two, achieved. Now, as you just said, with consolidation, there could be an outside buyer.
Yeah.
The thing you see in business sales is what a business owner wants and an outside buyer offers. It's never the same. All right? It ain't. And so consolidation, I don't know enough about it, but I know they're going to look at the numbers to benefit them. I do know when you do the in-house growth and transfer, you'll make more money. But you're growing that person. It takes time.
So you think, in your experience that those businesses can be transferred and sold at a higher multiple to those than you would.
You can get more money because, as I said, as I arrive at a sales price,
Yeah.
a potential outside buyer, they don't care what my price is.
No.
All right. If I'm dealing with an internal employee, I already know they don't have the money.
Yeah.
All right. We're talking 20, 25% down. But can we give them an avenue to earn that ownership?
That 20, 25% down in that through the stock, the phantom stock.
And then through that, we can set a future value.
Yeah.
And we're agreeing on that future value because I'm giving them an avenue to ownership.
Yeah.
And that once again, it's a win-win.
Nice. So what insight, what's kind of the greatest insight you could share for that to help a business owner transition from the tradesperson through the exit?
It's how do I convince somebody to work on the business? And looking at the last, 10 years, business owners like working in the business. It's what they know. They can do it. They're good at it. If they do it harder, they hopefully make more money. My biggest challenge is, how do I get you to work on the business? Because now we're moving into uncharted territory. And if you said like to me, I want you to learn a new software program, talk about a sinking feeling, which is like, oh crap, I've not had good experience with that. I'm not relaying that to this, but I'm just saying, if it's unknown, I'm probably going to procrastinate.
Yeah.
So let me create a process where when I work with people, we meet once every other week. And there's specific goals. And my job is, let's prepare the roadmap, but then hold them accountable to the roadmap. And so I have to show people how to get there and then give an assist for 6, 12, maybe 18 months. So the biggest thing is, you want to work in the business. I'm not exiting. All right. That's the biggest comment. I'm not leaving. You don't have to. All right. Let's just shift what you're doing and begin to give you time. Because if I gave you time, and you mentioned, giving up some of the sales functions, giving up some of the administrative functions, imagine what that does for a person. And I once thought, as I'm kind of in my own phase, I'd like to take a week off, every month. No, I didn't. All right. A week was too long. So now I'm working like a 4-day week. And but I had to learn that.
Yeah.
which was really begin to say, can I create a work-life balance? And because I'm here in Colorado, we're next to the mountains.
That's
So
right.
create an opportunity, and every trade contractor, every, roofer has hobbies. We probably put them aside, but what if we really start blending a plan to let you start doing these things, but to give you time? But guess what? I'm going to pull you away from day-to-day operations to do that. All right. Here's a process. Do you want to do it?
Yeah. Get away from being self-employed, become a business owner.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time today. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more revenue through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com to get a copy of the book, The Best Known Roofer. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. Thanks for listening.